This is Tim Willis, and I'm continuing the series we're doing on products that are free from Adobe. And we're using that in the expansive sense. They are either free if you have an Adobe ID, or they have some aspect that is free, although it may be very limited. We're here in the free version of Adobe Creative Cloud because it is the portal where we can easily access all the other Adobe products. We go to Apps. It will list all our Adobe products and services, or at least most of them. And surprise, 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 most of the free stuff is at the bottom of the list. They didn't think you'd make it that far. And we're going to be looking at Adobe Color today. So we're going to go ahead, open that up. And as you might expect, Adobe Color has a color wheel. So this site is one of the sites that you actually don't need an Adobe ID for, although it does have one aspect where you will need it. And I'll explain that later on. So we're going to start with this toolbar here. We are in the Create section right now. We're going to bypass that for right now and save that to the end. But if we go to Explore, what you're going to see is a bunch of palettes, color palettes, and some pictures that they were taken from. And this is just a collection of palettes. And you see if we keep on clicking, we get even more palettes. And so that's all it is. It's a place to you can look for a palette you like, maybe get some inspiration from the images, whatever. That's going to be all it really is. And the only other thing is it has this little sub toolbar here where they have different categories of things like primary colors, which is full of things that are based on primary colors, and to the really crazy ones like vaporwave or synthwave, which are very, very colorful. That's all that the Explorer section is. Now, the Trend section, which comes next, is very similar. The difference being that what they are doing with the Trends section is they're following what's hot right now in graphic design, fashion, whatever, and taking photographs and then extracting color palettes from the photographs. So it's sort of like the Explorer section. It's just that it's more targeted towards what's going on in the world of design, advertising, and whatever like that. So those two things kind of go together. They have a new feature called Lab, which I haven't played with, but apparently this is something to work with vector files like an SVG file and recolor it. I'm really not going to mess with that because A, it's new and therefore probably buggy. And B, I just don't think it's worth the time to mess with for now. And then we have libraries. Now, the library is the one aspect you will need your Adobe ID for because the library is your library. It's where you can save some of those color palettes you saw earlier so you can reference them again. Now, as I have not added any, this section is completely blank. So having gone through that, let's look at a few other things. Here we have this set of icons on the upper right side of the toolbar. We can switch the theme here to make it a dark background. They have a little game here you can play if you want to play. Then we have things like help, forum, and so forth. Of course, the little 9-block grid here is your quick access to other Adobe products. And then, of course, that's the Creative Cloud. Then, of course, on the end is the Creative Cloud icon. All right, so let's go back to the Create section. I want to spend a little more time on this, and I'm actually going to switch this back to the light theme for right now. So we got a color wheel, and it's a pretty good one, pretty fancy one. You see it's got a bunch of colors picked out where those circles are, and then those squares down here correspond to the circles. Now you can change the color, you can change the tint of the color, you can trash the color or remove swatches, they call it. You can set the color as a base color, or you can copy the hex code. And if you notice here, that being bottom screen kind of a little awkward. And so they also repeat that up here in the upper right-hand corner. Then anything that shows up down here, if you created or whatever, you can actually save that to your library. The other side here, we have this sub toolbar, and we're on the color wheel, of course, right now. We can change the color mode between RGB, HSB, and LAB. And then we have various color harmony strategies you can apply. We're on analogous now. I hope I pronounced that right. We could go to triad, and that's going to change the way our colors look. If we look in our little swatch here, or if we click on, say, something like square, it's going to change again. But those are just different strategies that are used to come up with color combinations. Now, next thing we have here on the sub toolbar is extract theme. This is kind of cool. You can take a file off your computer. In this case, we'll just use this right here. Okay, so you see how it analyzed the picture and then picked out 5 colors from it, made a palette out of it. And so if you've got a picture that you like the colors and you want to build a palette from that, you can do that. You do have some filters here you can choose to change it up a little bit. And that's all it is. It's just a tool that extracts colors from any image you put in there. Now, similar to that is the extract gradient tool, which it's going to pull from that same photograph. And you see that it's extracting colors you might use in gradient. And the thing about this is, once again, this can be saved to your library for one thing, but we also can set the gradient steps. Right now, we're on 3 steps. We set it to 5. Let's go crazy and set it to 8. Okay. So you see now we have more colors there. So that's another tool that might be useful to you if you're trying to put together a color palette for a gradient. And other than that, we have the accessibility tools. And this is basically a contrast checker that will check the contrast between the colors on your page, or rather 2 colors you put in here. So right now, this yellow and green they have here is a contrast ratio of 3.33 to 1. And you see here on the right-hand side, we can crank that up and get it as high as 7. And if we click on that and apply, you see it changes the colors a little bit to get a higher number. And again, if we really want to crank it up, we can go to a 10.0, which is almost basically black and white. Excuse me, black and yellow. And the contrast checker is kind of an important tool because you want to make sure you have good contrast when you're writing and whatever's around it. So it helps people that have particular kinds of vision problems clearly see what's on the page. And that's pretty much it for the Adobe Color site. It's similar site to the site I use more often called coolers.co. And it's got some of the same kind of tools in it, but it is Adobe. And it does have quite a selection of palettes you can use for inspiration or as a starting point for your project. So that is Adobe Color. My name is Tim Willis. I'm a certified ClickFunnels phone builder, and I make tutorial and demonstration videos on things relating to sales funnels, ClickFunnels, website design, and basically just graphic tools that are useful for people to do all the above. That's it for today, and I'll talk to you later.